to Knesset member Yair Lapid. And we are ready to move ahead with our program and to present the next speaker. We're very happy to welcome here the chairman of the Labor Party, Mr. Avi Gabbay. After a successful business career, he joined politics and served in this government as the Minister of Environmental Protection. And after he resigned from the Kulanu party, he joined the Labor Party, ran for the leadership and won, and now heads the Labor Party. We're very happy to welcome you, Mr. Gabbay. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm very happy to speak to you at this very important conference. I don't see Amos here, but I would like to thank my good friend, Major General Amos Gilad, the head of the Institute and chairman of the conference, both for his contribution to Israeli security, but also for his wisdom and practical thinking outside the box, and especially beyond the hollow slogans that surround us on all sides. At every meeting with Amos, I always come out with a few important insights. I would nevertheless like to begin by expressing my admiration for the current Chief of Staff and the members of the security forces and the thousands of soldiers and officers, men and women, who have been on alert for so long, preparing for last night and the coming days. You all have to deal with difficult challenges, and I'd like to tell you from here, the people of Israel, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the approach of the security forces, according to which we must prevent the Iranians from turning Syria into another front upon us, is the right approach. And attacks, as we saw last night, are necessary, and the same is true for the southern front. We must not turn the border with Gaza into an open border. Israel must safeguard its southern border. I could devote an entire speech to the events in Syria, but I prefer to take a broader approach, a strategic approach on the geopolitical situation and what we should do. I meet many security people in the present and past, and I hear different approaches and the right things to do. They agree that the security forces are doing a wonderful job, but they agree on one more thing, that the big solutions of the problems are never military solutions. The big solutions are political, economic, and strategic solutions, which are the job of the politicians. And the politicians are the ones that draft the playing field on which the army acts. It must consolidate the overall policy and approach, and they are the ones who must ask themselves whether the policy is still the right one. Let me tell you a brief personal story about a conception. When I was in military training as an intelligence officer, we had a workshop about what happened in the Yom Kippur War. It was given by General Yoel Ben Baruch, and I read the book, The March of Folly, at least twice, and I asked myself, a young person at the time, one day would I encounter such a conception, and how could I prepare myself to identify it when I saw it? 2 years later, when I was a deputy intelligence officer on the Lebanese border, we encountered a terror squad. They didn't have any posters or anything to cut the barbed wire, nothing to show that they were on their way to us. Nevertheless, it was important for the intelligence officers to report that these were Palestinians and that all kinds of proof had been found that they were Palestinians. Ask yourself why, And the answer is simple. If they're Palestinians, then it's clear what we're doing in the security zone. But if they're locals, what are we doing there? Ultimately, at the end of the day, of that day, I realized that I was seeing in real time what a conception looks like, what it looks like when your thinking is stagnated and it filters all the way down and decides how the entire system acts. And since that day, I always ask myself anew, is this a conception? And how do we test the big questions in the right way? Our first commitment, we are committed to the long-term existence of the State of Israel and its security. That is the criterion against which I measure everything, to do whatever it takes to safeguard the security and safety of Israel and its people. And so we must look into every example and leave no stone unturned and go as far as the distance is required. Sadly, the Netanyahu government is locked into a conception that says that we can manage the conflict with the Palestinians forever and that there's no connection between the Palestinian conflict and the confrontation with Iran. I believe that is a mistake. We must always create a political horizon that strives to decrease the friction and will create for Israel a political security ring. During this month, in view of the events of last night in Syria and the withdrawal of Trump from the agreement and the move of the embassy to Jerusalem, I ask myself and I ask you, what's next? What is the vision of our government? How does it see the future of the Middle East? What is it doing in view of the moderate axis of the Sunni states and the promise that they bring with them? What do we want to achieve? And what is our action plan where the Palestinians are concerned? In a few days' time, the American embassy will open in Jerusalem. There will be a celebration with speeches and beautiful photographs and so on. It will be a true celebration. Jerusalem is our capital, and it's good that the U.S. has recognized that and it's moving its embassy there. But let's not delude ourselves, ladies and gentlemen. Even after the opening of the embassy, 2.5 million Palestinians living in Judea and Samaria are not going anywhere. They're remaining. They remain under our responsibility. They have to go through the checkpoints that we have set up. They need to get permits from the civil administration. They wait for permission from the cabinet to pave roads and continue to be dependent on us. The Iranian regime will not change after Trump's decision. They will continue to strive for dominance in the Middle East and to use terror and to attack Israel from Syria. And I'm sure that they are doing everything they can to be on our Jordanian border as well, which is, of course, a danger on a different scale as far as Israel is concerned, with dramatic implications for our security system. And that regime will not give up its dream of attaining nuclear weapons. It won't. And as far as the agreement is concerned, Trump has created a new fact on the ground, and that's that. We can only move ahead. There's no point in bogging down in who said what and why. We need to lower the flames and navigate wisely in face of the situation we are facing and renew the negotiations in such a way that connects between the Iranian economy and the fact that it will never, but never, be a nuclear power. And now, Israel must be part of this international effort. We must not turn our back on our friends in Europe, and we must continue to work hand in hand with them. And furthermore, we need to think all the time in terms of risk management. We are the ones who are here. Syria is on our border. It's not on the border of the United States. It's not on the border of Saudi Arabia. And that's why the price of escalation our enemies in Syria and the Iranians will pay, but we may also end up paying it. But not those who are encouraging us to further aggression and hostility. That is a price that requires us to look differently at our civilian preparedness. We must once and for all take the civil protection and security seriously. There's an annual ritual. There are talks by the government and then a report by the state controller that tells us the opposite. We go through this every year. I travel a lot throughout the country and I look at what's happening and the situation where civil protection, shelters, and so on, it's not good. Go to public housing and you won't find protected homes. In the best case, you'll find shelters that can hold perhaps 12 people standing up and no more. And in a time of missiles, protection is the most basic need for the citizens of the State of Israel. I would like to zoom out a bit and look together at the issues from a strategic perspective to see what are the strategic issues we're facing and what are the solutions or options. My experience has taught me that the main way to look at problems is to dive in and to look for the root cause. What is that? What is the one significant thing that makes the big change? And in my opinion, the root cause, the root problem lies in our relations with the Palestinians and our unwillingness to deal with the most important question: how do we plan to live here together between the Mediterranean and the Jordan? And that is also where the deep political rift lies. We believe there is a solution, or at least that we need to honestly and genuinely try to find a solution, and they believe in managing the crisis. We believe in separating from the Palestinians, and they believe in annexing them. We believe in a state that maintains its Jewish and democratic character, and they believe in land and the greater land of Israel. We believe in everything it says in the Declaration of Independence, and they believe in the nationality law. And we believe in the right of Arabs to civil rights, and they believe in using incitement as a political tool. We believe in democracy, but all the way, and they believe in a weak court, just as they weakened the gateholders and as they are trying to do with the independence of the media. For me, a true renewal of the negotiations with the Palestinians is the one significant act that can make the change and enable the transition from crisis management to strategic management. I know it's not easy. It's not even clear that we can reach an agreement. It's not clear that we can find that point where the red lines of the two sides connect. But ladies and gentlemen, the initiative is in our hands. And initiative has always been the path of Zionism, not only in building startups, but in settlement, in security, in diplomatic relations. And that's why we need to be determined in starting a course of action that will set permanent borders for the State of Israel. We must create processes that build trust between leaders, but most importantly, between the peoples. And I have already conducted many negotiations, including with Palestinians in my life, and I can tell you that based on my experience, negotiations never succeed before trust is built between the parties. And to do that, you don't need mediators, and you don't need some kind of external plan of a third party. To build trust, you only need to do what depends on us and on them. First of all, to stop building outside the settlement blocks. There's no security benefit in one or more caravan or mobile pines to make their lives easier, and also to move parts of Area C to Area B so that we'll be involved as little as possible in the lives of the Palestinians. And all the heads of the security systems believe in those steps. It's part of their agenda. And on the other side, too, they must stop their official incitement and stop funding the families of terrorists. Ladies and gentlemen, when we look squarely at reality for more than a decade, and you can see it with your own eyes, for over a decade, there has been no real process or negotiations. 10 years wasted. And when our grandchildren read the history, they'll have to ask themselves, what happened during this time? And we'll have to say, no, there's just blame games between the sides. A lot of gay Israelis are familiar with the term blame game. I just said that. That means that we're not focusing on the right issue, because if we're blaming each other, then we're not dealing with the real issues. It didn't move us ahead in any way. And that lost period needs to be ended now. Now. We have the best conditions possible for the state of Israel. The moderate Arab countries are united in the struggle against Iran. There's no existential threat posed to Israel. The United States is closer and more friendly to Israel than it has ever been. That is the time to act and take initiative, to discard the fears that come from the politics of the base, and to respond to an Arab initiative with amendments, with conditions. At every meeting I have with Arab statesmen in the past and in the present, that's the first question they ask. We placed a proposal on the table. Why haven't you responded for more than 10 years? Tell us. You agree, you disagree, but respond. Ladies and gentlemen, after a decade of nothing, the political alternatives are clearer than ever. On the one hand, there's the Netanyahu doctrine that believes in endless foot dragging and dangerous streams of annexation. And on the other hand, we, the Labour Party and the Zionist camp, with a broader perspective on the security subject, with the creation of a more easy playing field for the security forces, with a strong Jewish and democratic Israeli state, alongside which will be a demilitarized Palestinian state. The decision is up to us. We heard Yair Lapid talk about a lot of things in the Middle East. He didn't mention the Palestinians, but they're here. They're among us. How can we ignore that subject? And that leads me to say these centrist alternatives don't really exist. They just blur the true picture that Israelis should see. And that blurring serves the doctrine of those who believe in stagnation. And our role, and we do it everywhere, is to prevent a different path, to show Israeli citizens that we can promise security and hope, security and change, security and peace. Thank you very much.